Hey, good morning, everyone. I believe we are live now. Welcome. It's Monday morning, and we're here for another AP Music Theory session. And if you are joining us for the first time, my name is Mindy Foote. I'm an AP Music Theory teacher in Placentia, California. And every day we've been doing videos together. I've been sharing some fun facts about myself just to get to know me a little bit better so you can see I'm a real human. Today, my fun fact is that I have done flying trapeze. So I've actually done it a few times, but this picture in particular is from Cancun, Mexico, at a Club Med, I believe, I don't know, maybe 2015, I want to say, relatively recently. And are you ready? I have a video for you.
Let's go!
So, send me a tweet, you guys. I'm running out of fun facts for you guys. Okay, my Twitter is at APMT Mrs. Foote. Let's see. I'll go back to that for a second. Oh, Mrs. Foote APMT. I don't even know my own Twitter handle. I need to know. This is our last formal week together in terms of new lessons. But next week, the following calendar week, we'll also be doing a special test prep week. I'll tell you more about that later in the week. But we really only have, let's say, 3 normal sessions left together. So send me a tweet. What do you want to know about me? What fun facts should I tell you? Okay. So we do not need to watch that video again. What are we going to be talking about today on this Monday morning? Well, I had some suggestions that actually we go over our format of the video today before we dive into the warm up, so that way those of you who are especially watching this not live can potentially pick and choose what you want to see. We are going to start with a warm up, and the last time I met with you, which was, I don't know, Thursday, I guess, last week, I gave you a part writing question from figured bass symbols from 2009. So we'll be going over that first. Then I'm going to give you lots of information about the details of the 2020 exam. And we'll focus on the requirements and the specifications about the sight singing, because then the bulk of our lesson today will be all about sight singing. I'm going to give you some general strategies about how to prepare and what to do on the test day for sight singing. And then we'll practice a few sight singing questions together. And then, of course, I'll leave you with a homework assignment, and it will be to do some sight singing. And again, for those teachers out there, the skill that we're focusing on is skill 3D from our CED. And that's all about sight singing. So without further ado, let's dive into, this was the 2009. And if you haven't printed this out already, again, especially if you're watching this not live, let's see if my pen will work. I might be stuck with red. Oh, there it goes. You can go to this URL here. I believe it's linked in the video description below too, and print this out if you want to push pause and do it ahead of time. It's never too late to do your homework, and then you can check your answer by watching me do it with you. All right, so we are in the key of E minor. One of the things that I like to do when we're in a minor key before I even start is I'm going to write down what the leading tone is. The leading tone is our D sharp, which is not part of the key signature, but I can see some figured bass symbols already, the 6 with the slash through it, this little sharp over here. Of course, here's that bass note that indicates that we want it to be harmonic minor, not natural minor. So my first Roman numeral is a 1. That chord is given to me, E, G, B. And then we right away get a tricky figured bass symbol. So one way to interpret this is to ignore the 6 for right now and just think about 4-3. When I think about my 7th chord inversions, we know that 7 means root position, 6-5 is first inversion, 4-3 is second inversion, 4-2 is third inversion. So 4-3 would imply that this bass note right here is not the root, but it would be the 5th of the chord. So if I count my way down from F, I'm looking for the root of the chord, F, E, D, C, B. So that would be from the key of E, this would be a 5 chord. And building my 5 chord, we would have B, D sharp, F sharp, A. And I need the 7th because the 4-3 indicates that it's a 7th chord. The other way for you to come up with this same information is by being very literal with what these numbers refer to, and that's the interval above the bass. So I'm going to start from the F sharp, and I'm going to count to 3. F sharp, remember to count that as 1, F, G, A. Now I'm going to count to 4, F, G, A, B. Now I'm going to count to 6, F, G, A, B, C, D. And the slash through the 6 tells me we don't want it to be a regular D, we want it to be raised a half step D sharp. So then when I look at the F sharp and the A and the B and the D sharp, I can kind of unscramble those to put them in order, and I see that we have this arrangement. So this would be a 5-4-3. All right, in terms of putting in my voicing now, let's see, the tenor is already on a B, so I'm going to have him stay on a B. We could have, let's see, we already have the F sharp in the bass. We need a D sharp and we need an A. Well, how about we have the soprano go up to the D, and I'm going to have the alto go down to the D sharp. We have to be careful when we have a raised 7th here. We want to approach it by a half step. We don't want to have a leap of an augmented second, for example. Alrighty, so next we have a little 6, which indicates first inversion. So G would be the 3rd, and counting down, E would be the root then. So this is just a 1-6 chord. I'm going to have my leading tone go back up to E, even though it's in an inner voice. So technically you don't have to resolve the leading tone. I find that it's good habit. And the 7th of my chord is an A. I'm going to have that go down to a G because that is how 7ths like to resolve. There are some exceptions to that, but when I can, I'm going to. Okay, so you can see that's a tritone relationship in the alto and soprano, which is fine harmonically. I mean, that's part of a dominant 7th chord. And then it resolves in, which sounds very nice, right? Our dissonant to consonants. All right, so what does that leave me with in our tenor? Well, how about a B? I've used the phrase borect with you before. Boring, but correct, where we can have a constant tone if possible. We want to keep that constant tone. All right, next I see a little 7 by itself indicates that we want a 7th chord in root position. So this D sharp is actually the root of the chord. So if I build my triad here, we would have a D sharp, F sharp. Why is it F sharp? Because of the key signature, A, C. So in the key of E, what does this make in terms of a Roman numeral? This would be a 7 diminished 7 chord. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I thought 7 diminished chords usually come up in first inversion. 7 diminished 6 we're often used to seeing, but when they have a 7th with them, they can actually occur in all inversions. So a root position 7 diminished 7 is not that unusual. And keep in mind that you don't get to choose the inversion. The College Board, whoever wrote this problem, told us they want a root position 7 diminished chords. So that's what we're going to do. All right, let's put in some voicing. Let's see, I'm going to put in my soprano first. Actually, I'm going to have these just go back up in parallels. Now, remember, you're not allowed to have parallel fifths or parallel octaves. These in the soprano and alto right now are parallel thirds though, and that's fine. So let's see, we have a D sharp, F sharp, A, and I need a C. Well, if we have the tenor go up too, I know that's a lot of parallel motion. At least it's contrary motion to the bass, that's good. Let's double check our tenor with these upper voices. B, if I count up to the alto, B, C, D, E is a 4th, parallel fourths are fine, and B, C, D, E, F, G, parallel 6, not a problem. Alrighty, so next we come to a note with no symbol underneath it. So that implies that it's root position and we do not want a 7th along with it. So this would be a 1 chord because it's an E and we're in the key of E, E, G, B. All right, let's go back to this 7 diminished 7 chord and resolve our tendency tones. Tendency tones include the leading tone, which is in the bass, and that D sharp is already resolved up to the E. Good job, College Board, whoever wrote this problem, right? And then our 7th, which is in the tenor, our C, we want to resolve down because that's what 7ths like to do. Okay, so what does that leave me with for my upper notes? I have an E and I have a B. Well, one of these could go to a G, right? Either one of them. We could have the F sharp go up to a G or the A could go down to a G. And what would that leave me with? In terms of doubling, we could double the root. That would probably be the most traditional. So actually, you know what? Let's just have them go back to where they were before, right? We've got in the soprano and alto this nice little parallel third pattern, and the tenor's kind of along for the ride. That works. It's borect. All right. 6/5 we know means, if we look over here, first inversion in terms of our 7th chords. So this A is actually the third of the chord. So if we work our way down, A, G, F. And oh, it's actually an F sharp because of the key signature. So let's see. We have an F sharp, an A, a C, and the 6/5 implies that we want the 7th in there. So in the key of E, this would be a 2 chord. We're getting all kinds of interesting chords in here. Yes, we had a 7 diminished 7th earlier, and now we have a 2 chord. So when we're in a minor key, 2 chords, if they have the 7th on them, are diatonically, which means naturally it just happens this way, half diminished. I would suggest that you just memorize that, which is the little circle, like a degree symbol with the slash through it. If you want an explanation as to why, it's because we have a diminished triad with a minor 7th, right? From the F sharp to the E. Another way of thinking about it is that we have a minor third between the root and the third, a minor third between the third and the fifth, and we have a major third between the 5th and the 7th. In order to be fully diminished, we would want all minor thirds stacked on each other, on top of each other. But diatonically, when we're in a minor key, it just happens to work out to be a half diminished 2 chord. Okay. All right, I suppose we should put in some notes here. We need an F sharp. Clearly, this tenor is not going to go to an F sharp. So one of these 2 notes is going to go to F sharp. I'm not sure who yet. So do you see I put in the F sharp, but I didn't put in a stem yet. We need an A. It's already down there in the bass. We need a C. We could have the tenor go up to a C. I think that'd be closest. Sorry, I get these little stray marks on my paper sometimes. My paper, I should say my screen, because of how I rest my hand on the screen. I use, by the way, I get questions about this sometimes through email and Twitter. I use a Surface Pro. It's a Microsoft Surface Pro with a stylus and a touch screen, which is how I'm able to write on the screen. Okay, let's see. F sharp, A, C, we need an E now. Ooh, okay, this is going to be kind of exciting. I see the alto is already on an E, so I'm going to have her stay on an E, which causes the soprano and the alto to be quite close together. It's unusual that we have seconds when we do these part writing pieces, but it's not a problem. When we have seconds like this, I actually don't want you to worry about like which note goes in the front and which note goes in the back. I'm putting the soprano in the front, her stem goes up, and the alto in the back, her stem goes down. But if you have them flip-flopped, it's not that big of a deal. The stems might look a little wonky, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. What we do need to be careful about, especially when our voices are so close together, though, is voice crossing. We haven't talked about that in a while. So voice crossing is when what we want is the soprano, then alto, then tenor, then bass, right? If, let's say, in this case, we would be talking about the soprano and the alto. If the alto ever goes higher than the soprano and the soprano is lower than the alto, that's called voice crossing. That's not good. So, for example, we would not want the alto to go from an E, which she's on in this one chord, up to the F, and the soprano to go from a G down to the E, because they would like essentially switch places. voice. In this case, with the soprano and the alto, it's not a big deal. Just make sure, the higher note stem is going up and the lower note stem is going down. But the other place that it can happen sometimes is between the alto and the tenor. And it's harder to catch if you have voice crossing in the alto and the tenor because they're in different clefs. So I would especially recommend that you check if you have a lot of ledger lines, right? If our tenor starts creeping up higher into some ledger lines like an E, E4 above middle C, that's fine. That's in his vocal range. But then we just have to double check that the alto has not gone down lower than the tenor part. Okay. Voice crossing. All right, so lastly, we come to this final chord, which has a suspension. And my last video that I did with you last week was all about suspensions, which is why I gave you this problem. So this would be a 4-3 suspension. The little sharp with no number after it implies that it's a 3. Now, this suspension has nothing to do with what inversion we're in. So this B would be in root position. So first, let's just get our Roman numeral in. This would be B, D sharp, F sharp. How do I know it's a D sharp? Well, because that's our leading tone in the key of E, but also because there's this little 3 with the sharp sign in front of it. So this would be an uppercase 5. And by the way, making this a half cadence, you do not have to write in the cadence on these problems, but I always like my students to think about what kind of cadence it is. It's just a good habit. Okay, so now let's deal with the suspension. We need to, I recommend that you write and resolve that suspension before you do any of the other voices, okay? So we are going to count from B up to 4. Remember to count B as 1. B, C, D, E. And then this sharp 3 would be B, C, D. So if you are thinking to yourself, there is no E in this chord. Correct. We need to look at the chord before it, this 2 half diminished 6/5 chord. Remember, a suspension has 3 parts to it: the preparation, the suspension itself, and then the resolution. So the preparation occurs in the prior chord. I'm going to look at who is singing the E in this prior chord. And in this case, it's the alto. So I'm going to have the alto stop for a minute, stay on that note longer than she should, even though there is no E in this chord. That's a non-chord tone. And then she'll resolve down to the D sharp. I've used the analogy in the past about how in homorhythmic texture, all of the chords, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, are marching forward together, right? Chord, 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 chord. And then when we get to the suspension, the alto stops to tie her shoe. And then the soprano, the tenor, and the bass all proceed on without her. And she's like, oh, wait up for me. And then she finally resolves down, okay? And she catches up. So we've got a B, we've got a D sharp. Now we'll fill in our other notes and notice that they're going to be a half note. Do you see the bass here? Because we're in 4/4 and we want to have a complete measure. No big deal there. Well, let's see. The soprano is on an F sharp. Let's have her stay on an F sharp. Again, when you have a second like this, it's a little bit awkward, but what we do want to make sure is that it's above the E. Don't put it above the D sharp because we want the soprano to move at the same time on beat 3. So we've got beat 1, beat 2, 3, 4. The soprano is holding over, and the alto is going to be the only one that moves from beat 3 to beat 4. And then what does that leave us with for our tenor? We've got some choices because we have a fully spelled chord now. I would say when in doubt, double the root. So we could have the C go down to a B. All right, shall we hear what this sounds like? Okay, here we go. Make sure my volume's up for you. Oh my gosh, I messed it up. It's always when we get to the cadence because I'm so excited, you guys, when I play these. I'm like, oh, here's the suspension. And then I mess up. Okay, final measure. Are you ready? I'm going to start from the 1 chord. Oh, love that. Okay. So sorry. My piano skills are a little questionable, particularly when I'm trying to do it on the side of my body like I am here in my office. All right. I want to point out to you on the 2009 scoring guide, and all of these are available for you on AP Central on the College Board's website. They make some different choices than I do up in the alto and the soprano, especially. And if you are looking at from chord 2 to chord 3 here and thinking, oh, did they just write parallel fifths? Well, actually, it's a diminished fifth to a perfect fifth, so it's okay. It's not my favorite. It's not what I would do. Clearly, I did it on the prior page differently than them. But this is just a good reminder that there are many different options and many different ways that you can solve these problems. Remember, these are out of 25 points for question 5. You get 1 point for every Roman numeral that's correct. So make sure that you put in this one chord. I sometimes have students who leave this out. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points there. 1 point for every chord that's spelled correctly. You don't count the first chord because they gave that to you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points there. And then 2 points per connection. So that means between chord 1 and chord 2, between chord 2 and chord 3. You get 2 points for each one of those voice leading being correct. And that equates to 12. Just a reminder, I keep telling you that if you misspell a chord, so let's say in the second chord, you accidentally forget the D sharp, you just put a D, then you just lost this point right here because the chord is spelled wrong, and then you automatically lose the points into and out of that chord. So that would be a -5. That's really, really bad. So be really careful that you spell all of your chords correctly to maximize the amount of points that you can earn on these. All right, so are we ready to sing? Oh, first I was going to give you an overview of the AP exam. All right, so we've talked a little bit about this before, and here's a bit more of a formal screen that's going to break down some things for you. You can find this information on the College Board website, but I've also posted a document on um, our kind of shared Google Drive that has all of these worksheets in it. There will be a link for that at the end of the video, and you can print this out if you'd like to see it. So we're going to have 2 questions, but each question has 2 parts. So it's really kind of like 4 questions. Question 1 is 65% of your grade. So that's a big deal. These are going to be our part writing questions, and it's similar to the problem that we just did, which is FRQ 5, and then FRQ 6, which would be part writing from Roman numerals. Okay, you'll have 25 minutes total there, and then 5 minutes to upload your response. So they're going to be releasing more information about this later in this week, like literally tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. So when I see you again on Wednesday, I'll tell you more about this, maybe even have a sample to show you. But you'll have a worksheet that you could print out ahead of time, and it's going to be kind of like a formatted already for you so that there's little lines for you to put in your Roman numerals and things like that. There will be some amount of copying that you have to do though. So you're going to have to put in the figured bass symbols or the baseline that they give you. And you'll complete your answer on that paper. It must be handwritten, and then you'll take a picture of it and upload it. Okay. And you'll do the 2 problems, and it's all part of question 1. Then question 2 is the sight singing, and this is 35% of your overall AP grade this year. So we definitely want to practice our sight singing. And these are going to be just like the sight singing on any other exam. So we're going to have one in major, one in minor, and so on. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. What's different is that in 2020, you can use an instrument because these are at-home exams. They are open note. And in our case, as musicians, we have some resources that we can use, like our instrument or our piano. If you do not have a piano at home, or if you don't know how to play the piano, it's fine. You don't have to use these resources. But you will be, one of the things that I've learned recently is that you will be in charge of giving yourself your starting pitch. Okay, there will be no audio for us to listen to on the examined day. There will be no suggested starting pitch in terms of audio. Visually we'll have a suggested starting pitch because they'll give us the music, but then you'll have to find that pitch yourself. If they're going to release some resources, some free resources. So, for example, maybe like an online keyboard for you to use, piano keyboard, or like a pitch pipe sort of thing. If you just need something to play C4 for you and you don't have perfect pitch, the College Board will give us some resources, or of course you could Google those and find those yourself. I would recommend, of course, if you do play an instrument or have a piano, that that's going to be something that you want close by to you when you sit down to do the exam that day. Okay. Let's see. Here's some more information again about question one. I'm not going to dwell on that today because our focus today is about sight singing. And you have 15 minutes total to do the sight singing, but they recommend that you record it as quickly as possible to give yourself time to upload it and check your answer. Like if you listen back to it and you're like, oh no, there's something wrong with my recording, then you will have time to re-record it. You could do it over again and upload a new file. But if you spend, 10 minutes practicing and trying to get it perfect, you record it and then it's like down to the wire. Oh my gosh, I'm almost out of time. I'm trying to upload my file and something's wrong. Well, sorry, then there's not a lot that you can do. Once that timer goes off, and there will be a timer on screen, and I believe when it's like 5 minutes left, the timer turns red and it's like, warning, warning, you should be uploading at this point in time. If that timer goes off and you haven't uploaded your file, then you just don't get points for this part of the exam. So it's really important that you monitor your own time. You have to be your own proctor, right? And the sight singing itself, in terms of practicing and performing it, I would say shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. Usually on a normal exam, you get 75 seconds to practice. You can take more than 75 seconds this year, but don't take too long because you want to allow yourself time for technical glitches and yeah, getting all of that up there. Okay. You do have to say your AP number first, some little details like that. We're going to get more information on later. And this is also a good time to plug that next week we will be doing practice sessions, Dr. Eater and I, where on Monday, for example, we will help to proctor like a 45-minute practice exam on YouTube and time out for you and give you questions to do at home so you can kind of get the feeling of what that 45 minutes feels like. And in the case of sightseeing, what the 15 minutes feels like. Okay. And then the following day on Tuesday, we'll go over the exam that you took on Monday, and then we'll do it one more time. So next week, you will have two full 45-minute practice exams that Dr. Eater and I will walk through with you. Okay. I would highly recommend you tune in next week. And that's what it says here. You're going to have some training on how to correctly capture them. And we'll talk more about details in terms of are you going to be using your phone? Are you going to be using a Chromebook? But those kind of things you want to start thinking about now. You need to be using some sort of device that allows you to take a picture and some sort of device that captures audio. You are not going to be, actually, this is on the next page here. You are not going to be required to use some sort of lockdown browser or anything. Also, if you're taking an AP course that is a world language, they have their own special um, app that they have to use to upload their audio file for speaking. For us, that's not the case. We are going to use our own, whatever is on your smartphone or on your Chromebook. So a voice memo app or Audacity is a free program that you can get to record your voice, and then you will have like an MP3 file that you will upload into the just regular browser. Okay, so start thinking about that. What device are you going to be using? for the exam. And again, next week during our practice, we'll talk more about what that looks like and hopefully walk you through the actual screen that you'll see, okay? So when is our test date? It's May 19th. So even though that seems like a long way away, in my opinion, we've kind of only got 2 weeks left before AP testing starts, because I know many of you out there are taking more than one exam. So this week we've got our regular YouTube videos finishing up our lessons. Next week is our test prep week. And then the following week, the first AP exams actually start. So May 19th. They do have a makeup date, but they recommend that everyone plans on doing it on May 19th. So that if something goes wrong and you have some technical difficulties, then you've got that June 5th date to fall back on. If you plan on doing the June 5th one and you have technical difficulties on that day, then you're kind of out of luck, okay? So May 19th. All righty, let's do some singing. So some strategies that I would recommend that you do before the exam starts, before you're even like logging into your computer. It's when you wake up in the morning and you're eating your breakfast and you're getting ready for the day, you're going to start warming up your voice. We've talked about some vocal warm-ups that you can do in the past. I don't have any, particular favorites. I guess my favorite one is just to sing a 5-note scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then work your way up by half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When I got up this morning to get ready for this YouTube video, I wake up at 5 a.m. Remember, I'm on the West Coast, just to give my voice time to wake up. I'm worried about some of you who have really early morning testing because of just what time zone you're in. You don't want to roll out of bed and then immediately try and take the exam because your voice will still be asleep. Set your alarm early, and then, like I said, when you're eating breakfast, it's, I guess, weird to sing while you're eating breakfast, but when you're combing your hair, you're going to be singing. And literally this morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. I go downstairs, the rest of my family is asleep. And as I'm doing my hair and my makeup, I'm singing in the bathroom, trying to get ready for you all and warming up my voice a little bit, okay? The next strategy is to make sure that you have a plan. I know many of you out there have practiced using solfege syllables with your teacher, do, re, mi, fa, so. Wonderful. If you prefer, I like using scale degree numbers. That's the mathematician in me. You can use letter names like actual note names, C, D, E. And keep in mind that that doesn't go into the grading. So when in doubt, if you get flustered during your actual recording, or if you just want to play it safe, you could just sing la, 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 or da, 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 ta, ta, ta. What I would recommend that you do is use a syllable where you have to enunciate and open your mouth. Humming with closed lips is never a good idea. Part of it is just because the microphone doesn't pick it up as well, okay? You need to think about performing slower with a nice steady tempo. It does not matter what tempo you perform at. All of them are marked moderato, which means, don't go too fast, but there's not going to be any sort of count off. You're kind of on your own for that. The reason why I say slower tempo is because you are going to be nervous. Your heart is going to be beating 1,000 miles an hour because it's an AP exam. I know that, some of you have college credit writing on this. You're going to be nervous. So when adrenaline is rushing through your body, you're going to have a tendency to sing faster than expected. And then your brain has less time to think while you're singing. So just keep that in mind. Be mentally prepared that you're going to be nervous. Be rhythmically accurate, especially when it comes to compound meter. Last week, I think it was, I did a video completely just on compound meter. So I would highly recommend that you go back in the YouTube playlist and look for that video if you haven't watched it already. Practice those compound meter rhythmic patterns. And the other thing is when it comes to the end of the sight singing, you want to make sure that you hold that note for its full durational value. I'm going to show you the scoring guidelines in a second, and you'll see why that's really important. We've talked about this before, making sure that you know the range of your voice. Are you an alto or are you a soprano? If you're not sure which one you are, but at least just know what are the most comfortable pitches for you to sing. And I'm going to play around on the piano. Like, what is the range that I like singing in? What is my starting pitch going to potentially be? Okay. And use your practice time and your upload time wisely. Like I said, we do want to practice it ahead of time. On any normal exam day, we would only have 75 seconds to practice. You can take longer than that to practice this year, and prep your response before you hit that record button. But you don't want to take so much time practicing that then you're stressed out about the audio file uploading in time. Okay, so we have to be really careful about that. All right, here we go. Let's do some singing. This is from the 2019 exam. I believe we haven't looked at this one yet. And the first thing that you need to think about is what key we're in, major or minor. We have one sharp, but do you see the starting pitch and the ending pitch is an E? So we are in the key of E minor. The starting pitch here given to me is an E. And remember I said know the range of the example. When I look ahead, I can see that it doesn't even go up to a higher octave. And it goes down to a 7, but it doesn't go much lower than that 1. You can write on the music ahead of time. So I've put in my scale degrees, and I'm going to now kind of test my voice and see if this is a good starting pitch for me. We're in minor, so we're going to sing a sad 3. Those of you who use solfege, of course, instead of do, re, mi, you would sing do, re, me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to get up to 6, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Why didn't I sing all the way up the scale? Because it's not necessary on this particular song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice I'm not thinking about rhythm right now. I'm just thinking about the range. For me as an alto, I might choose to lower it. I feel stressed out when I sing that 6, honestly. So transposing is a little tricky though, because then I won't necessarily be able to play it on the piano unless you have good transposing skills. So for right now, I'm going to keep it in that key. And again, I'm going to start looking at some of those harder intervals. I'm not going to worry about rhythm yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 6, 5. Do you see that leap? Second measure. 6, 5, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. Practice is repetition. Notice we're taking our triad 1, 3, 5, and we're mixing it up in a different order. 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. Now, I often do this process with no rhythm as I am physically writing in the numbers on my music. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to think about the rhythm. We're in 4/4 time. We've got quarter notes, eighth notes. We've got a dotted rhythm in that second measure. When I see a dotted rhythm, I like to think, ooh. And so I've got a second measure, 1 and 2 and 3, fa, da, right? 3, 4, and let's do this. 1. Oh, I should say, I'm still in the practice mode right now. The fact that I'm still playing the piano means that I haven't hit record. When you're ready to actually do your performance, you cannot have any other noises. Like you can't accompany yourself on the piano at that time. And if you don't play the piano, remember you could be playing your violin or your flute right now, or using some sort of electronic software program to help find some of these tricky intervals. Okay. So I am practicing, I am singing with rhythm now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. If you want to transpose it, you might even think about singing it faster just to get the melody in your brain then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 5, 3, da, 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 da. Notice the problem with going faster. It's like, oh my gosh, I have too many syllables that I have to get out of my mouth. I switched to la la la. But that way, if you get it into your musical memory, then I can change it to any key I want. Da 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 da. So just an example of singing it in a different key. If you, when in doubt, just sing it in the key that it's written. I think many of you will be doing that, but transposing is certainly an option. All right, I'm going to go back to my original tonic and sing it one more time without the piano. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. All right, now we've got the scoring. So they are going to give you 1 point for every half measure that's correct in both pitch and rhythm. So they are all going to be 8 segments long, which is 4 measures. And there's so that equates to 8 points right there, right? 1 point for every half measure. There's 8 half measures. There's this lovely extra point at the end that we like to call the flow point. The flow point you get, it says in this scoring guide right here, number 1B, if at least one segment is correct, which hopefully more than one segment is going to be correct, we're going to add 1 point for a complete response that has no hesitations or restarts. No hesitations or restarts. So if we can just power through this, even if we mess up in the middle, let's say, we get this little bonus point at the end. And if we start singing and we get flustered and we want to restart in the 2020 exam, that is possible. We can push stop on our device and then start again, re-record. But if you start running out of time, I would say that it's better to get a response in that's not perfect. Even if you didn't get your flow point, than to have no response at all, okay? So yes, ideally, we're going to sing it perfectly the first time through, but if not, you can try recording it again as long as you have enough time. And when in doubt, submit your response that's not perfect just so that you can have a score. Notice that it says if a student restarts, score the last complete response. So this would be more for other years where you really only get one chance at it. And if you do have that restart moment, then you lose the flow point. Okay. All right, let's look at question 2 now. Our starting pitch down here, F151. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have to sing this up an octave if you're a lady, or you're going to have to transpose it. I notice that I'm in bass clef, so we have one flat and the starting and ending note is F. So when we put in our numbers here, let's start by just going up an octave and seeing what happens with my voice. 1, 5, 1. Oh, that's not great. It's right around my break, but it might work for us. Okay. I'm going to work my way up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is what I have to get up to. Oh, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 7, 6, 5, 5, 1. Let's give it a try. So notice that we have an altered pitch in here. 1, 5, 1, 2, 1, 7, 1, 3, 6, 5. Now, when we're using scale degrees, we don't have special syllables that change when we have chromatic pitches. So what I tell my students to do, we're on 5, is we use our finger and then we just go 5, 6, and we kind of, work our way up chromatically. 5, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 6, 7, 1. All right, let's give it a go. We're running out of time here, so I would love to practice this more with you, but I want to be respectful of your time and this lengthy YouTube video. Ready? We're in compound meter. So I'm still going to count us off in 6. Okay, we're going to try and feel it in 2, but I'm going to count you off in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 5, 1. Oh, I'm not supposed to be playing the piano right now. I'm doing my real performance. Sorry about that. Here we go. 4, 5, 6. 1, 5, 1, 2, 1, 7, 1, 3, 1, 3, 6, 5, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 6, 7, 1. Oh, this would be one of those moments where I would hope that I have enough time to go back and retry this. One of the things to think about though is that your video does need to be all in, or your audio needs to be all in one audio file though. So if you mess up the second one, then you're going to have to re-record your first one too. Okay. Um, all right, we are a bit out of time, but again, I want you to see that the scoring guidelines for the second question is the same as the first one. We get a point for every half measure that's complete. Even though we're in 6/8, we can still think about dividing this up into 8 segments, and then we get 1 point for our flow point, not having to restart, not having any hesitations or tempo changes in the middle of it. The last thing I want you to think about is when we compare these two pieces, you notice that one was in treble clef and one was in bass clef. One is in 4/4 and one is in 6/8. One is in major, one is in minor. That will always be the case. So let's take a look at one more. These were 2019. If I look at 2015, do you see that we're in bass clef for question 1? We're in C minor. And what was our third thing to think about? Um, Oh, our meter, we're in 4/4 time. Also, the fact that we have no chromatic pitches. Yes, we have that B natural at the end, but that would just be our raised leading tone, okay? So we have a minor key, simple meter, and bass clef. Then we have our question 2, we're in E major, treble clef, compound meter. And then we have an altered pitch in the third measure there. Okay, so I have some homework problems for you to do. If you go to this URL, you can see all of these. And in fact, maybe what we'll do is we'll practice what was this year from 2015 the next time I see you also. We'll practice the 2015 and the 2012 next time I see you on Wednesday morning. Okay, so go to this URL, print these out, practice them at home, and I will see you on Wednesday. Don't forget to send me a tweet. What fun facts would you like to learn about me in these last few sessions that we have together? All right, happy Monday. I hope you guys have a great day.